What's up, world? Let's go ahead and talk about how the Sagittariuses relate with every sign. Okay, so let's go ahead and start off how the Sagittarius relate with their fellow fire signs, which should be a good relationship. But let's go ahead and talk about how a Sag relates with another Sagittarius. Now, two Sags together would, of course, be a good relationship, but it's not as strong as you think. Just because these two Sags will still have to have like a spiritual connection, a mutual spiritual relationship that allows them to have a long-term relationship or have a strong relationship together. If not, these Sagittarius will just be kind of like shallow friends with each other. They won't be they won't have a deep relationship. All right, so it'll be kind of like an associates relationship, not a best friend relationship with two Sagittarius together unless they have a mutual spiritual connection. All right, so that's how Sagittarius get along with another Sagittarius. All right, now let's move to the Aries. All right, so how does Sag get along with the Aries? These two get along actually very well because they're very active people together. The Sagittarius are very adventurous people that are always looking for something to do, and the Aries are very active people that are always looking for something to do. So this is where they relate well. Where they won't relate well is if the Sag may be vibrating way too high or way too low for the Aries. All right, the Aries is very independent, so they are used to doing things their own way. So if they don't have like a mutual connection, if they're both on the opposite sides of the earth, then this is where they won't get along at all. All right, but if they're both looking for something to do, this is where they get along great because they're both very active people. All right, now we got a Leo. So a Sag and a Leo together also get along very well because both of these signs have a childlike nature. They like to have fun and enjoy themselves and express their free spiritual ways. Now, where they won't get along is that the Leos tend to want to be loved a little more than a Sagittarius, so they're easier to be accountable for and be dependent on. Whereas the Sagittarius really do things for their spiritual beliefs, so they're a little harder to be dependent on and be accountable for. Okay, so this is where they really get along is if when it's time to have fun, play, and enjoy themselves. That's where the Sag and Leos are great together. But when it comes to something serious or something that requires accountability, then this is where they really won't relate well with each other. So overall, I would say the Sagittarius relate best with themselves, then the Aries, and Leos last. And really, that's how the Sag relates with their fellow fire signs. Okay, now let's move to the earth signs, which can be a shaky relationship for the Sagittarius because fire isn't always safe on earth. But let's talk about it. Starting with the Sagittarius and the Capricorns. Sag and the Cap together can be a decent relationship if the Sagittarius have a strong meaning and reason to be a hard worker, right? Sagittarius normally are people that don't like to be disciplined or have structure, right? So this can be volatile when they're dealing with the Capricorn because Capricorns are all about hard work and they're all about the structure and discipline, right? So now if the Sag doesn't bring that with whatever relationship they have with the Capricorn, then this probably wouldn't work out too well. All right, they probably won't get along at all if the Sagittarius is lazy or the Sagittarius doesn't have a strong meaning and reason to work hard. Next earth sign we got is the Tauruses. Now, Sag and Taurus together can get along pretty decent if they learn to understand each other. Taurus aren't normally spiritual or wild and goofy people like the Sagittarius is, and Sagittarius aren't much practical people that like to stay calm and cool like the Taurus. So when they learn to understand each other and understand the differences, that's when they can really get along with each other. But if they don't learn to understand each other's differences, then they really won't get along because they're both gonna be doing their own thing and expressing things in their own way. But if they do learn to understand each other, then they could get along great. Last earth sign we got is the Virgos. Now it'll be a little harder for the Sagittarius to get along with Virgos just because these two signs are very much different. Virgos are very detail-oriented, analytical people, whereas the Sagittarius are free-spirited, spiritual people. So they really don't like to get too much into detail and into things like the Virgos do. All right, so it's gonna be hard for them to get along. They will have to learn a lot from each other before they will get along. But it will be hard for the Sagittarius to get down with somebody like that has Virgo energy just because they will never be able to long term keep up this analytical, detail oriented energy or this warring energy that the Virgos always got. All right, this is gonna be a plague for the Sagittarius. So out of all the earth signs, I would say the Sagittarius get along best with the Capricorns, then the Taurus, and lastly the Virgos. All right, Virgos probably last out of all the signs, but that's how the Sagittarius get along with all earth signs. All right, now we got the air signs, which should be better relationships for the Sagittarius just because air does help fire spread and travel. But let's start off how the Sagittarius get along with Aquarius. A Sagittarius and Aquarius together do get along very well because both of these signs are big on helping out the people. They're big on helping out humanity. So both the Sagittarius and Aquarius can get in their little activist energy or activist bag and just try to help out other people. Where there's a Sag preaching and teaching to other people, or where there's the Aquarius finding answers and solutions to help out the people, right? This is how they really get along with each other. Where they don't get along is if the Aquarius may have too much structure and discipline for the Sag, all right? This is where the Sag really won't get along with the Aquarius, all right? But outside of that, they will get along very well by creating opportunities for each other. Next air sign we got is the Geminis. Now the Sag and the Gemini together actually get along very well. Although they are opposite signs, they are very much similar people. They both like to be goofy, silly, and interact and have fun with other people. Where they may not get along is if the Gemini is too serious with their logical and intellectual ways, and if the Sagittarius is too strong on their spiritual and faith-based beliefs, then they're gonna have trouble getting along. But if they're not too hard on these things, the Gemini not too hard on their intellectual ways, and the Sag not too hard on their spiritual ways, then they're gonna get along great, better than most signs. All right, that's the only way they don't get along, is they're too hard in their own ways. Next and last air sign is the Libras. Now, Sag and Libra together can get along fairly well because both of these signs can be very much extroverted and big on helping out other people and very much communicative and know how to preach to other people. Right now, where they may not get along is if, once again, the Libra, being a very much structured, organized person, may be thrown off by the Sagittarius' lack of structure and organization, right? But besides that, they should get along fairly well because they both are serious about helping out other people. So out of all the air signs, I would say the Sagittarius gets along best with first the Geminis, then the Aquarius, and lastly the Libras, all right? And that's how the Sagittarius get along with all the air signs. And finally, we got the water signs, which should be a much more neutral relationship for the Sagittarius, being that fire can only heat up water till it evaporates. But let's talk about it, starting with the Pisces. A Sag and a Pisces together do get along very well because they're both ruled by the same planet. They're both gonna love to express their spiritual ways, their faith, their beliefs, or just how they see things, all right? So that's really how the Sag and the Pisces really get along. They're both gonna love to work with other people as well. The Sag being very adventurous when they get around other people, and the Pisces being very adaptable with other people, all right? So this is really how they relate with each other. Where they may not get along is if the Pisces may be too sensitive for the Sagittarius, but outside that, as long as they're both able to express their spiritual ways, then they shouldn't have any issues getting along with each other. Next water sign is the Cancers. Now, the Sag and the Cancer together can get along very well if they're willing to understand each other. They're both very much faith-based signs, and they like to go through spiritual experiences to learn from and also to have an emotional connection with. This is how the Sag start doing things for a meaning and reason. The Cancers do things because they care about it, okay? So this is really how they relate well with each other. Where they don't relate well is if the Sagittarius is a little too careless for the Cancer. Our next and last water sign is the Scorpios. Now, Sagittarius and Scorpio together can only get along well if they have similar passions and desires. Scorpios are people that are very much into their own passions and desires, not really as free-spirited and as wild as a Sagittarius is. So outside of them having things in common or similar interests, they're really gonna find it hard to get along. Maybe short-term friends, but definitely not long-term friends. So I say out of all the water signs, Sagittarius get along best with the Pisces, then the Cancers, and the Scorpios last. All right, but that is really how the Sagittarius get along with all the water signs and all the signs. And that wraps it up. Peace.